So it's the National Productivity Day, and the National Productivity Award is taking place later tonight. Big names such as Aliko Dangote, the billionaire businessman and Africa's richest man, as well as Oba Otudeko, who is a banker, a former president of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Tony Limelu, the chairman of UBA and Hess Holdings, as well as Channels Media Group Chairman and Chief Executive Officer Dr. John Momoh are standing up for honors tonight. So let's talk about Nigeria's productivity. Of course, the National Productivity Award is not peculiar to Nigeria. In many countries around the world, including Sri Lanka and others, hold what you call the National Productivity Award. In fact, they have their own independent National Productivity Council. So let's talk about this a little bit, and then what we have right now. Let's bring in Celestine Okeke, who is a lead partner at CEDI from Abuja Studios, into this. Celestine, good morning. Right now, as we speak, the event is on, the National Productivity Award. I always thought this ought to be a dinner thing, but it's a business. So let's put it during the business time that we are right now. What's your take? What's your first thought on the national productivity process?
Thank you, Boasin. Good morning, and thanks for having me. The process for me, I think it's good to reward people who are productive and supporting the Nigerian economy. It's a good thing to do. But then the process for me is what I don't really quite understand, how we get to to select the nominees. There's a nomination process that picks them out. But to cut it short so we can move on to other aspects of it, it's good to award people who are productive, who are supporting the economy. Dangote is doing fantastic. Tunelmeli is doing great. These guys are doing so well. But then we might have to look at what is the mandate of the National Productivity Council. What were they set up to do? Is it just to organize the awards? Or are there other fine things they are asked to do by the law establishing them?
Okay, so in terms when we say national, this is an agency, the NPC is under the Ministry of Labor and Productivity. So this ministry, in your opinion, what do you think this ministry is really all about, and what has it been doing?
The Ministry of Labor and Employment, as it's called, by the name, I wouldn't speak to what it does, but let's even look at the name, Labor and Employment. That means it's meant to address labor issues in the country and then for employment, which is why it has the National Director of Employment, NDE, a parastatal under it. But to give you a fair idea of what it has been doing over a period of time, you would look at what role it has played for employment interventions like the UWIN program we had between 2011 and 2014. What role it played under UWIN program, which is just about, I can't tell what's happening to it, but what role did the Minister of Labor play under the UWIN, the Empower, and other intervention for job creation? Very little role, very minute role. And then on its own, has it been able to come up with intervention for employment in Nigeria? Not much has happened from it, beyond the NDE. And then what impact has the NDE, which is a parastatal under labor and employment, had in the last 3, 4, 5 years? We did a report in 2017 where we highlighted the activity profile between 2011 and 2015. Not much came out of it. Then NPC is also under it. National Productivity Council is also under it. And I must admit, I really have not bothered with the council for a long time. But I went from last night to early this morning, I looked at the council's mandate. It's quite a good mandate, a broad mandate. They are meant to spur research development for sustainable economic development to improve the quality of goods and services in Nigeria. But then I have had interactions with them a couple of times, and that isn't happening. So it's more as if the emphasis is more on the awards, which, like I said, is not a bad thing. But we tend to hear about NPC when these awards are due, not after the awards and not before the awards.
Okay, so in terms of what the National Productivity Council, because when you say it's a council, it means it has what it does on a daily basis. It has to add value. But so if we look at the state of the economy in general, when we say national productivity, if we take oil or hydrocarbon, oil and gas out of that of our portfolio, what is left in terms of non-oil sector productivity if you use the GDP, if you use the PMI, what is the Purchasing Managers Index, if you use inflation and other parameters to measure it? Are we really productive?
Okay, so I was following through your conversation with your guest from financial derivatives, and he talked about corn. The prices are going down because the harvest is not happening, because the weather is not supporting harvest for now. But then, why is that happening? In 2013, 2014, the then Minister of Agri talked about the impacts of climate change on agriculture. And in response to that, they talked about the National Agricultural Resilience Framework to address this impact in terms of mitigating and adapting to the impacts of climate change. And then this document was produced in 2014, late 2014 thereabout. And from that time till now, we have not kickstarted adaptation and mitigation of climate change impact. So if we're not able to harvest, if farmers are not able to harvest their corn or wheat because of the weather, it also speaks to the fact that they are not productive. And why are they not productive? They are not following the trend, the growing trend in agriculture across the world, climate change. And early this year, farmers in Anambra State said they were forced to harvest their yams even before they were matured for harvest, because the rains came much earlier than they thought and came with much intensity, and it was sweeping off their farmland. So these are the issues that tie into productivity. Like I said, let's take out the oil sector. Most other sectors, not all, most other sectors are having productivity issues. And I'll speak for agriculture, where I'm a bit experienced and have more knowledge about. Productivity in the agri sector has been declining over a period of time. We might be doing well with people who are getting big-time government support. But when you drill down to the smallholder farmers who are most time cut off from government support, as little as knowledge, information on what to do, when to do it, and how to do it is almost absent. And imagine you pick a car today, you don't know how to drive a car, and maybe you just say you are bold and brave, and you know that this is the gear, this is the gear, the brake, and the rest. You might be able to move that car from point A to B, but you can't move it as much as somebody who has learned how to drive a car. So we have a productivity crisis in Nigeria across several sectors that we need to begin to address.
Why is our productivity at such a low ebb? If you measure it in naira terms, I'm not sure we're doing up to 1,000 naira per person. If you use some current data, I'm not sure we've ramped up to 1,000 naira per person in terms of our productivity, our output. If we look at our aggregate output, it's been measured. So, what do you think the chief factors are against our productivity?
Okay, so if you look at, let's take, for instance, some key sectors of the economy, and let me talk about the small businesses. For you to be productive in any endeavor you are involved in, you need to have basic information and knowledge about that sector. If you don't have it, you operate at very low levels. What is our education system like? That's another big challenge for us. We did a review of the Nigerian Universities Commission policy on entrepreneurship, and what came out of it is that there is no policy on entrepreneurship at NUC level. What they have is a partnership with an international firm to deliver on entrepreneurship education. At the universities, at the polytechnics level, what they have is a policy that was launched in 2007 that has not been reviewed from that time till now. And what is this telling us? The pipeline producing entrepreneurs in Nigeria is very faulty, is weak and faulty. Beyond just being weak, it's very faulty. People who are turning up to become entrepreneurs are really not equipped to be entrepreneurs. They don't even know how to run and manage their businesses. So when they now get into the business space, the market space, they are coming in with knowledge that is not up to date, knowledge that is not adequate and is not appropriate for what they want to do. Go to any other sector, we still have this problem of productivity. Even in the civil service, productivity is a big challenge there. Let me give an instance in Abuja here. The bulk of people who work in the civil service have to come from where we call the Maraba, Nyanya, and the rest. That's where most of them can afford to reside in. And with the traffic situation, they don't get into town till maybe 9:30, 10, thereabout. And because they have stayed in traffic for an hour, 2 hours, they come in very tired. And when they get into the office, they take another 1 hour to settle in and work. That's taking you to 11 a.m. And because they don't want to get stuck in the traffic that builds up from 4 p.m., they begin to try to go home by 3 p.m. So how many hours do they have to work? So in essence, to say, we have not sat down to say, what are we going to do to make Nigerians in this sector productive, in that sector to be productive? We have felt that money alone can solve challenges, can address problems for us. So what we do is to keep throwing money into problem. Money cannot solve problem. It has a role to play, but it cannot solve the problem entirely. So let's even look at the agri sector again. Nigerian smallholder farmers are among the least productive in West Africa, not even talking of the whole world, West Africa for now. And why is that the case? As little as access to extension services has declined for a long period of time. When we had the World Bank Agricultural Development Program, the ADPs, it improved on extension services. Some ADPs were doing very well. But once World Bank stopped funding ADPs, Nigerian government stopped funding ADPs to a large extent, even across the state levels. And then you have farmers who do not know who to talk to, who do not know where to get information from, who are just farming with the knowledge they had from 10, 8, 9 years ago. And that cannot make you productive. It cuts across different sectors, not just the agri sector.
I understand. I have a bit of an idea what happened to the ADP when the World Bank started it in the 80s and across the Southwest, at least that I was aware of. Now, the ADP program is a very big shadow of his former self. But again, if you look at entrepreneurial spirit, therefore, of few Nigerians who are able to pull through and raise their head above waters, as it were, what does that tell you about what it takes to actually be an entrepreneur in Nigeria and stand up to be recognized for national productivity?
Okay, so Boasin, entrepreneurship is not something you learn after you've started a business. It's something you are equipped with before you even start the business. Let me explain why. Across the world, there's a new trend going on that which is on startup finance spend, how you spend the startup capital. So let's say, for instance, you have 100,000 to start a small or a micro enterprise. The next question is, how are you going to spend that 100,000? How will you spend the 100,000? The common trend for most of the entrepreneurs in Nigeria is if you have 100,000, you want to invest in a business, some of them spend as much as 80,000, 90,000 to start up the business. And now this is a business you have not even tested. You don't know much about it. When you put in 100,000 or 80,000 or 90,000 and you have a little problem along the line, you are losing your entire startup fund. But then the global best practice is, if you have 100,000 to invest in a business, you don't do more than 30% of it. The reason being that if there are lessons you learn after investing, you will learn it with 30% of the fund. If there are mistakes you would make, you make it to 30% of the fund. If there are errors that will come up, you are only going to lose 30% of your fund. But because the pipeline producer entrepreneurs is not strong and is weak and is not up to date, people get into the business space with very little information and very little knowledge, and they begin to hit the rocks quite very early, which is a normal thing. Businesses often run into crisis, but then when you put in the bulk of your startup capital in starting a business and it runs down, you are going off the radar. Nigerians are entrepreneurial. There's no doubt about that. Nigerians can survive with even 1,000 naira to start a business, but then if they don't get the right non-financial support they need to get from government, which takes care of how to start, how to sustain, and how to scale up your enterprise. When you have a problem, there's nobody you are talking to. When you have a problem, there's no way you can get funding back from, and it begins to weigh down the entrepreneurial system. But give and take, Nigerians are doing so well in the entrepreneurship space, but then there are things that need to be put in place to enhance their productivity. Look at the WIN program, for instance. Till date, we can't tell where these award winners are. We don't have a compendium saying this is where they are. This is a 5-year plan to continue to support them. This is a need assessment we have done 3 years from when we gave them the award money. This is the needs we have discovered are existing. This is how we feel these needs for them. When we don't do all of these things, we're not enabling them to be productive. Productivity is something that has to be driven by government. Government has a big role to play, and private sector also.
Celestine Okeke of SEEDI, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate that. Thank you for your comment on this National Productivity Day in Nigeria. Thank you so much from our Abuja studios. See you next time on the show.